listening to the Watercooled Edit with Rich and Eman.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Watercooled Edit with mybayut, hosted by myself, Eman and Richard.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
On today's episode, what we're actually going to be talking about is the hidden costs of buying a property in Dubai.
Shall we start with the government fees?
Yes, let's start. And I think that's the most popular one that people are aware of. So the DLD transfer fees, right? So essentially, whenever you're buying a property, you have to pay 4% of it to the Dubai Land Department, right? And then after that 4%, there's an additional charge as well. So if you're buying, say, an apartment or an office, then it's an AD 580 dirham charge.
Okay.
If you're buying a villa, a land, a plot, then it's going to be AD 430.
Right.
And then if you're buying an off-plan unit, it's just AD 40 that you have to pay in addition to the 4%.
Okay. In addition, but the 4% being quite a hearty amount in most cases. Yeah.
And then additionally, you're going to have to pay another 580 dirhams to issue the title deed from the Dubai Land Department. And then there's another 4,200 that you're paying in DLD admin fees.
What we'll do at some stage during this episode is have a look. We'll kind of total up potentially what all these fees could add on to the price you pay for the actual property itself. So it'd be interesting to go there. But what other sections do we have in the government?
So we still have a few. So after you're done with the DLD fee, then comes the DLD property registration trustee fee.
Okay.
All right. So this one is dependent on the price of the property. So if your property is under 500,000, then you have to pay 2,000 plus VAT. Okay, that's a 5% VAT. If it's above 500,000, then you have to pay 4,000 plus the VAT.
Yikes. Okay. All right. So that's another one on the calculator.
Yes. And another thing that I will also mention is that speaking of trustees, so there is actually a security deposit that you have to pay when you're buying a property.
Okay. What's the reasoning behind that one?
So essentially, when you sign Form F, so that's a read off form between the buyer and the seller, essentially agreeing to the transaction. And then after that, that form is also referred to as an MOU. It can also be an SPA, right? A sales purchase agreement.
Okay.
So while that is happening, you essentially have to go to a DLD trustee's office, all right? And then over there, you're going to sign this form, essentially proving the fact that, this is a transaction that you're looking to purchase this property.
Both parties are agreed.
Yes, exactly. And then you pay 10% of the overall property price to the trustee. So they actually hold that amount while this interaction is happening between the buyer and the seller.
Okay.
Yes, and that is refundable. Obviously, once a transaction goes through, you get that back. But essentially, that's just there to mitigate any risk that happens. So while you're getting, say, this DLD transfer fee, while you're registering the property, while you're getting a no objection certificate, etc., this shows that you have the intention to buy this property and you're getting all of the documentation in order to finalize the deal. So both the buyer and the seller are protected.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
So there is a security deposit that you have to pay when you're buying a property.
When you first said that, I was like, that sounds, I mean, what's the deal there? But when you look at it from that, it is providing an element of security, but for both parties, right? So it does make sense from that perspective. What other ones do we have in the government section? I think I've got one now, haven't I? This is the DLD mortgage fee, right? And this is basically 0.25% of the mortgage amount that you pay to the DLD to register your mortgage with them.
So when you're registering a mortgage with the Dubai Land Department, you're also obviously going to register your mortgage with your bank. Right?
Yes.
So there is a bank arrangement mortgage fee. So that's generally going to be 1% of the property price. And then in addition to that, you're also going to be getting a property valuation report that is necessary for the bank to process your mortgage. So that's going to be between 2,500 to 3,500 dirhams. You're also going to have to get an NOC, which is a no objection certificate from the developer that you're buying this property from. And that could range anywhere between 500 dirhams to 5,000 dirhams, depending on the developer.
Hopefully closer to 500, considering everything else you're paying there.
So those are all of the government-related fees that you have for buying a property in Dubai.
Okay, and that's quite considerable, but it's not the end, is it? Because we're moving on to potentially agency fees, broker fees. Okay, so I believe there's a maximum of 2 in here, right?
Yes, there's only 2.
Right. Okay. So that's a relief for everyone, eh? Start with the broker fee, right?
Yes, the agency fee.
Yes.
So this is obviously what you're going to be paying your agent that you're working with. It is negotiable. That has to be said. So it is generally 2% of the property price. Can be lower, can be higher. It depends on who you're working with.
Yeah. So there's an element of negotiation in there, but if you take it across the industry, generally it comes in at around 2%.
Yes.
I think
That is correct.
that's the deal. Okay. And what's the other in this section? We have the conveyance fee.
Yes, we have the
Is this a definite or a potential?
This is the potential. Again, it depends on the broker that you're working with, and it depends on the sort of rules that they have in place. But essentially, this is to provide you with all of the contracts and the documentation as per UAE law. So they'll actually be helping you in putting all of that together.
From a legal perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this also has a range. It starts at 6,000, goes up to 80, 10,000. So it could be anywhere in that range or higher. Again, depends on your relationship with your broker and the understanding that you have with them.
Okay. So again, it's there's a maybe an element of negotiation there. Yeah. Okay. So they're the potential 2 fees in that section. Then we move on to the final section,
Yes,
which
we
is
do.
kind of go ahead. You
But
go.
you know what's interesting? So these are the main fees that you're going to have before you actually buy the property, right? Whether you're buying, say, off plan or whether you're buying ready.
Ready,
right?
yeah.
And I think there's a lot of confusion as well into what is considered a primary sale and what is considered a secondary sale. So this was something that I had learned as well. So when you're buying something primary, that means it's first on the market. So you're buying it directly from the developer.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, you actually remove all of the agency fees, right? Because there's no broker involved. You're directly dealing with the developer.
Yeah, it's between you and the developer. There's no kind of middleman there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
Or woman. Sorry.
middle person.
Middle person, exactly.
So that's what is considered a primary unit. A secondary unit is obviously when you're buying it from another person. And it's secondary to the market, right? Like somebody's already bought it. So for example, if I was buying a property from you, it would be it would be secondary.
Yeah. It makes sense. I think that's a really good point because it's it's really it's very logical and stuff, but it's something that unless you've been involved in the industry or actually purchasing places, you might not know it. Because to be honest, I didn't. So there you go. Thank you.
Yeah. And at this point, I think we can do a little tally because these are all of the costs that you have associated with the property before you buy, right? Like
So this is the juicy bit, right?
Yeah.
This is the juicy bit. This is what people have been waiting for. How much does it add on?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So now let's take, for example, a 4-bedroom villa in Furjan, 4,300 square feet, for example. Currently priced at 4 million. I chose a blank number to make this easy.
I think that was a wise move.
Currently, it's actually going for 4.4 on the market, but let's say it's going for 4 million.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
So this is me buying this
Yes.
do I have a swimming pool?
No, this villa does not come with a swimming pool.
I don't want it. That's it. The deal's off. No, sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Now, your DLD fee for this, the 4%, okay, it's going to be 161,000 to register, okay, just to begin with. The second big chunk that you're actually going to be paying is another 93,000 to your agent if it's, say, a 2% fee, all right?
Yeah.
You're going to be paying 23,000 dirhams to negotiate, to register the mortgage. Okay, all in all, the listing price is 4 million. So far, we've clocked in, already at like 230,000 plus.
Okay.
To actually buy this property, you're going to be paying 295,000 in fees to get all of the transfers, the registration. This is in case you're going for a mortgage as well.
Yeah.
That's the estimate. So essentially, this property will cost you 4.3 million.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's really, really useful information to have because people need to keep this in mind, as you say, especially if they're the mortgage side of things, right? If they're buying through mortgage, that you look at the listing price, you see 4 mil. It's not going to be 4 mil, right? I mean, which is still a considerable amount of money as it is, but it's good to know that what the maximum you could potentially pay, which you say was 4,295,000 dirhams. So it whacks a bit of a chunk on, doesn't it?
Yeah. And another tip that I would give is that, say, for example, you see this 4 million listing.
Yeah.
And you say you visited it, or maybe you know what the unit number is, or you have that sort of information. You can actually generate a free property valuation report on Bayut using True Estimate. So you basically just log onto the website and you enter those details. You either enter the title deed, you enter the D1 number, you enter the unit number even. So that's very simple. You just enter the community and what the specific villa or apartment number is.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to generate a report for you that is going to mention what the estimated price is. And under the rental yield section, they actually have a breakdown of the cost to buy. So they'll give you that estimated price, and then they list down, say, the DLD fee, the mortgage fee, they list down the registration fee. All of those sort of things are there just for you to get a better understanding of, okay, it's listed or estimated or priced at this.
So if you wanted to buy it, it tells you potentially what you're going to pay in holistically what you're going to pay. This is great.
It's a good way to educate yourself in this sort of industry as well, right? When it comes to buying a property, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a massive decision that you're making.
Yeah.
So you really need to make sure
it's an intimidating decision, isn't it? Really, to be honest, for a lot of people, because it's one of the biggest investments they're likely to make in their lives.
Yes.
If not the biggest. So with that, there's a certain amount of trepidation. I know this myself because we've been thinking about it in recent times, and like it can be a bit dizzying. Like when you start. So any like kind of sources you can use that kind of just make it a bit more simple and bring it down into simplistic, logical terms. Use them.
Exactly. And it adds in the trust and transparency that you have in making that decision, right? It's very clear, it's very transparent of, okay, these are the sort of costs associated with it. This is the sort of data that you can use to understand prices, to negotiate, to basically make sure that you're getting the best deal possible and that you yourself are also informed about the market, right?
Absolutely. But did we cover the other fees?
No.
So
now we're kind of moving into the property maintenance fees. So this is obviously after all of the heavy lifting is done, when you can actually, move in. These are all of the fees that you're going to have to pay.
So after I paid that 4,295,000 dirhams for my 4-bed villa in Furjan without swimming pool, right? These are the fees that potentially you could incur.
No, not potentially.
These are the fees you're going to incur subsequent to that transaction taking place. Okay, hit me with it.
Okay, first one is DIWA connection. It's going to be 2,000 dirhams if you're in an apartment. It's going to be 4,000 dirhams if you're in a villa. Then the second one is actually going to hit you later. It's going to be the annual fees that you're going to be paying, the service charges, right? So for apartments, this is used for obviously all of the common facilities, the reception, the elevators, waste disposal, etc. For villas, it's for the same sort of concept, but also like if they're building roads for your community, basically to add to the network. Street lights and things like that are different for a villa community.
Greenery, the garden, and all the rest of it. Yeah. And maintenance and such.
And the way that this works is that you actually pay based on the square footage of your unit.
Okay.
So for apartments, even your balcony is considered. You are charged a lower amount for that because obviously you don't live there. And then for villas, it's square footage as well. So again, this ranges across the size of your unit.
Yeah.
And then the community that you're in as well.
Okay.
So service charges could range anywhere from 1.5 dirhams per square foot to say 40.
Yeah, I mean, I would say service charges, right, are something people really do need to be aware of. I'm not saying, they should be aware of everything with regard to what they're going to have to pay out, but some service fees you look at and they can be quite eye-watering, right? And I'm not saying that they're not worthy of that. They're fantastic, probably fantastic communities and all that, but it's something you need to know about because you're going to be paying them on a yearly basis, right? Exactly. So it's not a one-off and it's done.
Yes, it's a recurring charge. And
yes.
Again, it changes annually based on whatever requirements are there in that community or in your unit specifically as well.
Yep.
So that's one. Then in tandem to that is district cooling. So this is essentially you paying the chiller fees for your AC unit, right?
Yeah.
So some rental units actually have to pay this as well. But if you have a property, then you have to pay those charges separately. And that is dependent on whoever is a district cooling provider in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously dependent on, I mean, as you know, I live in the green community in DIP. We've got Emical there, but it depends on whereabouts you are.
There is the last one, which is insurance, home insurance.
Yeah.
Now, home insurance is not mandatory here
Mm-hmm.
in the UAE, in Dubai. But obviously, if you've spent so much in buying a property, you would also want to get home insurance for that.
Yes.
So that is an option.
Especially if you live near a body of water, I would say, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you never know what can happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And while home insurance is not mandatory yet, I assume maybe in the future it will be. If you have a mortgage, you need to get mortgage insurance, which essentially is 0.4 to 0.8% of the annual amount of your loan that is remaining.
Okay, and what this covers, this covers you if basically you suddenly can't pay your mortgage,
Yes,
is that for
or
whatever reason?
Or if you pass away, in terms of things like that, you need to have mortgage insurance to make sure that they can recoup those losses.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense, and that's really, really interesting. This has been very, very, very informative, I have to say.
I would say the final cost of buying a property, this is not really hidden, is obviously maintenance. So if you want, obviously, if you want to upgrade your house, that's going to be a whole, other set of costs, whatever it is. If you're increasing the square footage, if you're, completely revamping the kitchen, changing the floor plans, then you need to get permission from the developer and things like that. If something just goes wrong and you have to fix it, that's a maintenance charge.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it happens, right? So, and I think as well, one thing we have to look at, I mean, I'm joking about how much you have to pay, but the thing is that if you look at what you get for your money here in Dubai and in the UAE in general, with regard to how much you're paying for square footage and what have you, compared to some of the other major global destinations, it's extraordinarily competitive. Do you know what I mean? So it's all relative, right? You know, once you pay these things, you get yourself a glittering property, even if it hasn't got a swimming pool. Put one in. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's good knowledge to have, but don't be off put.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I think, educate yourself and learn about all of this. And again, it depends on who you're working with as well, right? So having an agent that you can rely on that's going to help you and guide you through this whole process is going to be really beneficial. And if you're working with a developer, for example, like if you're buying primary or if you're buying off plan, then, make sure that you actually equip yourself with the right, I would say even consultant, just to make sure that you are making the right decision and that you're fully informed. And if you want more information on this or anything else that Richard and I have discussed about the hidden costs of buying a property, we have a lot of articles on mybayut.com.
We certainly do.
It goes into detail about all of the different nuances and the reasons for all of these fees. Even more information is found there. So that's Bayut.com/mybayut. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers, guys.
You're listening to the Watercooled Edits with Rich and Eman.